When I was a child, there was a village legend that said those over 100 would turn into man-eating ghosts. Great-grandmother reached 100 today, and our yard was packed with people. Grandfather boiled 10 eggs. He placed them in front of great-grandmother and softly said, "Mother, if you can peel just one of these 10 eggs, you can stay at home." I heard the villagers say that the ghosts cannot see eggs. Only humans can see them. Great-grandmother furrowed her brow and said plaintively, "Henry, my hands shake. I can barely hold chopsticks. Why are you asking me to peel eggs?" Great-grandmother was in poor health. When she was young, she injured her hands and often had tremors. Grandfather said, "Mother, the whole village is watching. If you can't peel the egg, you can't stay at home." Great-grandmother pitifully said, "Your father died early. I raised you 4 brothers by myself. My hands shake. How can I peel an egg?" Great-grandmother, as she said this, both her hands had already begun to tremble. Grandfather furrowed his brow and didn't speak for a long time. Seeing Grandpa thirsulent, grandmother spoke. "Mother, I'll say something unpleasant. 5 years ago, Agatha also refused to peel an egg. Her son insisted on keeping old Daggett Hat home, and as a result, 7 people in the household died, almost wiping out the family." Grandmother had barely finished speaking when great-grandmother changed color. The way she looked at grandmother was fierce, as if about to fly into a rage. Seeing great-grandma thirsulent, grandmother added, "Mother, if you refused to peel the egg, could you have already turned into an evil ghost?" Grandma had just finished speaking when everyone in the village who had come to watch fell silent, all staring at great-grandmother. Great-grandmother squinted her eyes and muttered softly, "I'll peel it. I'll peel it." Great-grandmother's hands were still trembling and shaking badly. She tried several times, but couldn't hold the egg steady. In the end, it was grandfather who shoved the egg into great-grandmother's hand. Great-grandmother held the egg, her eyes rolling back and forth twice. Suddenly, the room went dark and everyone was stunned. When they turned the light back on, great-grandmother had already peeled the egg. Grandpa saw great-grandmother peel the egg open and breathed a sigh of relief. Grandpa said to the villagers, "You may all disperse." The villagers left one after another, and only the family remained in the courtyard. Grandpa said, "Mother peeled the egg open. We must celebrate her 100th birthday." George said with a smile, "Mother, you are blessed. Let's celebrate your 100th birthday." Great-grandma smiled, baring her teeth, her eyes fixed on the people in the room. She swept her gaze around, then said with a smile, "Lucky. I'm luckier than your father." Grandpa said, "We'll slaughter pigs and sheep and hold a big feast for 3 days. You few little kids, stay inside with great-grandma." Grandpa finished speaking and went out to the yard to catch the pig. Left in the house were only us kids and great-grandma. Great-grandma watched us with a cheerful smile. She waved at the smallest Bobby. Bobby ran to great-grandma's side. Great-grandma held Bobby in her arms and even sniffed him. Great-grandma asked, "How old is Bobby?" Bobby said, "For years old." Great-grandma reached out and touched Bobby's face, smiling as she said, "Bobby smells so good." When great-grandma said that, I saw her teeth grow sharp, and they seemed to get longer. Great-grandma seemed to notice me looking at her. She turned to look at me and even waved her hand, smiling as she said, "Felix, come over here too." Great-grandma is very thin, and her complexion is poor. I always feel she seems to radiate a yellowish light, lifeless. I don't know why, but I'm a little afraid of great-grandma. Seeing that I didn't move, great-grandma was visibly displeased. She said, "Felix, come here." I tiptoed up to great-grandma's side. Great-grandma grabbed me hard in her arms. She even pinched the meat on my back, and she said, "Felix, is Bobby fatter?" Great-grandma let out loud after saying that. Great-grandma let go of me and Bobby, then waved toward Lily, Clara. They were a bit older, but only 7 or 8 years old. Great-grandma said, "Lily, Clara, come here, great-grandma wants a hug." Lily sidled up to great-grandma's side. Great-grandma touched Lily's face and complained, "Too skinny, all bones." Great-grandma then looked at Clara and said, "Come here." Clara stood frozen and said, I won't go. You're a man-eating ghost. Clara had barely finished speaking when great-grandma changed expression. She said grimly, "You little brat, what did you say? Do you want me to slap your face?" Clara said, "I just saw it. You didn't peel that egg. Grandpa peeled it and shoved the peeled egg into your hand." Great-grandma said with a sinister look, "Nonsense. I'll beat you to death." Clara said, "I'm not lying." Great-grandma's eyes rolled back and forth twice. She took 2 hard candies out of her pocket, and the rest of us kids stared wide-eyed. Sugar balls are very sweet. They can only be eaten during the New Year. Great-grandma squinted. She said, "Clara, come here. I'll give you a sugar ball to eat." Clara froze for a few seconds, staring at the sugar ball with wide eyes. Great-grandma said softly, "Come here, come to Great-grandma." Great-grandmother smiled, her tone soft. Clara leaned in next to Great-grandmother, who stuffed the candy balls into Clara's mouth. Great-grandmother asked, "Sweet?" Clara nodded, "Sweet." Great-grandmother smiled and said, "Clara, you were mistaken earlier. I peeled that egg. If I were really a man-eating ghost, do you think I'd be giving you a candy ball to eat?" Clara hesitated for a few seconds and said nothing. Only Clara of the few of us kids got a candy ball. We could only watch longingly. Great-grandma said, "Stop staring. I only have 2 candy balls. Go play outside." Great-grandma shepherded us out, but she held Clara's hand and kept Clara behind. The rest of us kids went to play in the yard. Lily was unhappy. She said, "Grandma left Clara behind. She must have secretly given Clara the tasty food." I nodded. Definitely. There are many children at home, but little to eat. Some can get it and some can't. We had long been used to it. When evening came, 3 tables were set up in our yard, and the family all sat down to eat. Only Lillian didn't sit down. She called out loudly, "Clara." No one answered. Lillian is Clara's mother. She asked us kids, "Have you seen Clara?" Lily said, "Clara was in the West Room just now." Lily had barely finished speaking. Lillian looked toward Great-grandmother and asked, "Grandma, Clara, where is she?" Great-grandmother said, "I don't know. Go check the latrine." She said she was going to the latrine. Lillian hurried to the latrine, peered carefully inside, and said, "She's not here." Tanai frowned. She said, "Then I wouldn't know." Lillian froze for a few seconds, nearly falling to the ground. She shouted loudly, "Clara!" Still no one answered. Grandpa said, "Everyone, help look around." We searched every corner of the yard, inside and out, but just couldn't find Clara. Lillian stomped her feet in anxiety, tears welling in her eyes. "Where has Clara gone?" Grandpa said, "Mother, you take the children to eat first. We'll go look for Clara." Grandpa said that, then walked toward the yard gate, calling as he went, "Clara." Everyone in the yard went to look for Clara, leaving only a few of us at home. There was pork on the table and fish, very lavish. We kids sat on the stools and ate heartily. Great-grandma seemed to have no appetite. She sat on the stool and didn't eat the dishes. I said, "Great-grandma, why aren't you eating?" Great-grandma laughed out loud. She said, "I'm not hungry yet. You all eat more." Great-grandma said that and went into the storeroom. There was a smell of blood in the storeroom. A basin of pig's blood was sitting inside. Great-grandmother was in the granary a long time before she came out. When she did, I saw a blood stain on the hem of her clothes, not very obvious. Great-grandmother smiled and said, "Eat your fill and then go to bed early." Great-grandmother said this and went into the house. The few of us children gobbled down our food and were full in no time. We kids went into the room. Great-grandma had already laid out the bedding. Seeing us enter, Great-grandma smiled and said, "Quick, get in bed and sleep." We kids climbed into bed. Great-grandma turned off the light. I closed my eyes to sleep. Late at night, I heard a crackle sound, as if someone was eating something. But so late, who would be eating? I opened my eyes, and Suburban Lilyboth sleeping. Only Tana was lying on her side with her back to me, and the voice was coming from her. I said, "Tanai, what are you eating?" Tanai's back visibly tensed. With her back to me, she said, "I'm hungry, eating a carrot." I said, "Tanai, your teeth are bad. How are you eating carrot?" Just as I finished speaking, Great-grandmother turned her head to look at me. The way she looked at me was strange, eerie. It was as if I asked one more question, she would strangle me to death. Great-grandmother said, "Go to sleep." I had no choice but to close my eyes and try to sleep, but I could still hear the crack-crack noises. They went on for a long time and only stopped near dawn. Early the next morning, the family had all returned. They had searched all night and still couldn't find Clara. Lillian collapsed to the floor and sobbed loudly. The family tried to comfort Lillian, urging her to calm down. Lillian said through her tears, "Clara never runs off. She's always obedient. How could she just disappear after coming out of the West Room?" Lillian said this with her eyes fixed intently on great-grandmother. Great-grandmother frowned. She said, "Lillian, what do you mean by that?" Lillian cried, "I just asked Lily. Lily said you and Clara were arguing in a room. Clara said you were a man-eating ghost and said the egg was peeled by Big Uncle for you. Then you gave Clara candy and left Clara alone in the room. You were the one who killed her." Lillian's big uncle was grandfather. Grandfather was stunned for a few seconds. He said, "Lillian, you can't say things like that. I didn't peel the egg." Lillian snorted. She said, "When Granny peels the egg, the light goes out. When the light is on, Granny has the egg peeled. This is strange. I just want to know where my Clara is." Great-grandma squinted and said, "You can't trust what children say. Children lie. I peeled the egg myself." Great-grandma had barely finished speaking when Lillian fetched an egg from the storeroom. She said, "Granny, peel this egg open. If you peel this egg, I'll believe you're not an evil ghost." Lillian had barely finished speaking when George rushed forward. He kicked Lillian to the ground and shouted, "What are you? Jack isn't home, and you dare act like you're in charge? Get back to your own house." George is Lillian's father-in-law. Jack work in the city and haven't returned for a long time. Besides, George looks very much like Grandpa. If you don't look closely, you can't tell them apart at all. Lillian cried, "Clara is missing. I don't want to live either. If you don't peel the egg in front of me today, I'll be convinced you're an evil ghost. Return Clara's life to me." Lillian was sobbing and making a scene. George was about to strike Lillian, but was stopped by Grandfather. Grandfather said, "Clara is lost. It's only natural for a mother to be frantic." Grandfather finished speaking and then looked at great-grandmother, saying, "Mother, Lillian doesn't believe you. Peel the egg again so she stops causing a fuss." Grandmother said, Exactly, mother. Just peel it again." My great-grandmother squinted at George and me. George rolled his eyes twice and said irritably, "Clara is my granddaughter. I'm more anxious than anyone about her disappearance, but you can't blame my mother just because you're worried. This isn't about peeling an egg. It's that none of you trust her and treat her like a demon." George had barely finished speaking. Great-grandma Theralready had tears in her eyes. She cried, "I'd rather be a demon. If I'm a demon, you can beat me to death and I won't be an eyesore anymore. I'm just a burden." Great-grandmother cried in the yard, crying heartbrokenly. The people in the yard all looked at one another. A young daughter-in-law advised Lillian, "Lillian, you must be overthinking it. Let's go search the village again. Maybe Clara is still in the village." Lillian cried, "Clara wouldn't run off. She must have been killed by her." Lillian pointed at great-grandmother, her eyes full of bitterness. Lillian said, "If that egg doesn't get peeled today, this isn't over." George shouted at Lillian, "What are you trying to do? If you make a scene again, get out of my house. I'm done with you as my wife." Grandpa said, "George, what are you doing?" That was spoken too harshly. George said, "How is what I said harsh? A woman who became a granddaughter-in-law dares to rebel, dares to bully my mother. She's been spoiled, that's all." Lillian had red eyes. Pointing at George, she scolded, "Clara is your own granddaughter. You don't care at all. Are you even human?" Lillian had just finished speaking when George moved to hit Lillian again. Great-grandma frowned. She said, "That's enough. Stop arguing. Give me the egg." George widened his eyes. He said, "Mom, are you crazy?" Lillian hurriedly handed the egg to Great-grandma. The people in the yard all gathered around, staring at Great-grandma. Great-grandma easily peeled the egg. She placed the peeled egg in Lillian's hand, then said, "Lillian, Do you believe me now? Lillian stunned for a few seconds, tears streaming down uncontrollably. Great-grandmother said, I'm old now, I don't want a big 100th birthday celebration. You all can go, just let a few children stay with me. Too many people. I find it too noisy. Great-grandmother said this while her peripheral gaze kept watching the few of us children. Great-grandmother's look made my skin crawl. George said, Mama, if you find the noise bothersome, we'll each go back to our own homes and not disturb your peace. Let the children stay with you. Great-grandmother nodded. She said, Everyone go on. Lillian cried, Clara, where did you go after all? The people in the courtyard all comforted Lillian, telling Lillian to go home and take a look first. Maybe Clara has already come back. Lillian walked toward the yard with red eyes. The people in the yard had all left, leaving only our household members and Bobby Lily. Great-grandmother smiled and said, You three, sleep in the west room with me tonight. Grandmother frowned and said, Mother, Felix should still stay in the east room. Your bed in the west room is too small. Since you're living with us for your old age and will see Felix every day, let Bobby, Lily stay with you for a few days first. Great-grandmother's smile froze on her face. She hesitated for a few seconds before saying, All right then. Great-grandmother said that, then led Bobby, Lily into the west room. Grandmother led me into the east room. Grandfather sat on Thebed in the east room, smoking dried tobacco. Who knows what he was thinking? His eyes were hollow. Grandma said, Old man, what are you thinking? Grandfather sighed. He said, Clara can't be lost. Where on earth did that child run off to? Grandmother said, Most likely eaten by an evil ghost. Grandma had barely finished speaking. Grandpa changed his expression. He said, What are you saying? Mom even peeled the egg right in front of you. How can you still doubt her? Grandma furrowed her brow. She said, Clara is obedient, a sensible child. She wouldn't run off. If you ask me, she's in Mom's room. If you don't believe me, let's both go press our faces to the window tonight and see whether Mom is really a demon. Grandpa sighed and said helplessly, If you keep being so suspicious, even if Mom isn't a demon, you'll make her out to be one. Grandma twisted her mouth. She said, There's a strong smell of blood on Mom. I went to the granary a moment ago. That basin of pig's blood is gone. I even asked Lily. Lily said only Mom went into the granary, so that basin of pig's blood most likely was made her drink. Grandfather glared at grandmother. He said, Nonsense. I'll go check the granary. Grandfather was just about to get out of bed when he was grabbed by grandmother. Grandmother said, I have my doubts too, but don't you dare spook her. Wait until late at night. We'll press up to the window. If she is an evil ghost, she'll surely go after Bobby. Lily, we'll watch tonight. Grandmother had barely finished speaking when I saw what looked like a shadow move past beneath the window. I looked more carefully again, but there was nothing. Could it be that I misread it just now? Just as I was feeling puzzled, Grandma said again, Evil ghosts eat people and drink blood. Agatha's fate will most likely be the same as mine. If you ask me, we should go invite a Taoist priest in advance. Grandpa frowned. He said, Bobby, Lily are my own flesh and blood. Nothing bad could happen to them. Grandmother curled her lip, too lazy to argue with grandfather. Late that night, grandfather carefully opened the door, and he and grandmother went to peer out the window. I wanted to go too, but grandfather wouldn't allow it, so I had to press against the window and look out. Before long, grandfather and grandmother returned. Grandpa was very happy, smiling. He said, See, Mom and Bobby, Lily are both asleep. Where's that evil ghost you were talking about? Grandma frowned. She said, That shouldn't be. Could it be that I imagined it? Grandpa said, You just imagined it. Early the next morning, Bobby, Lily came out of the west room, lively and well, as if nothing had happened. Grandfather said, Mother, Clara still hasn't been found. Felix, and I will go out to look some more. There's rice in the pot. You all eat first. Great-grandmother said, All right, take it slow on the road. Grandmother leaned close to me and whispered, Felix, stay away from your great-grandmother. Don't believe everything she says. I nodded. Got it. Grandmother finished giving me instructions, then followed grandfather out the door. The few of us children were playing in the yard. Great-grandmother sat by the base of the wall, basking in the sun, her eyes glancing at us from time to time. Lily said, "I don't want to live in great-grandmother's room anymore." I said, "What's wrong?" Lily said, "There are mice in Grandma Ty's house. They bit my finger until it bled." Lily raised her left hand. Her little finger really had been bitten. Bobby said, "I don't want to live in Grandma Ty's house anymore either." Lily asked, "Were you bitten by mice too?" Bobby shook his head. He said, "I heard great-grandma talking in her sleep. She said she wants to eat me. I'm a little scared and want to go home." Lily said, "I want to go home too." Lily had just finished speaking when I saw great-grandma stand up from her stool. She said, "Felix, boil some hot water. I'll kill a chicken for you kids to eat." The few of us children were all stunned, our eyes wide. There are only 3 chickens in our yard, all kept for laying eggs. I asked, "Great-grandma, can we kill the laying hens?" The last time we ate chicken was during New Year. It's been a long time since we had chicken. Kai and I said, "Yes, hurry and catch the chickens." I hesitated a little, standing still. Great-grandma said, "Lily, hold the chicken." Lily glanced at me and asked softly, "Can I catch it?" Great-grandma saw Lily not move. She stamped her foot in anger. Then great-grandma went straight into the coop and pulled out a hen. Great-grandmother went into the granary again and cut off the hen's head with a single stroke. Great-grandmother said, "Felix, hurry and heat some water." The hen was already dead, so I had to run into the granary to heat the water. Great-grandmother carried the dead chicken into the granary and said, "There aren't enough branches at home. You and Lily go up the mountain to gather some." I nodded. "Okay." I and Lila went up the mountain to collect branches. After we finished, the 2 of us went home. But as soon as we entered the yard, great-grandma opened her eyes wide. She said, "Bobby, why didn't he come back with you?" I was stunned for a few seconds. I said, "Bobby is at home. Only Lily and I went up the mountain to collect branches." Great-grandma shook her head desperately and said, No, Bobby went with you." Lily said, "No, Bobby didn't follow us." Great-grandma said, "I was in the storeroom the whole time and didn't see Bobby. Bobby must have gone up the mountain with you. Go check the mountain quickly." I said, "Impossible. Although Bobby is little, he's very clever. If he had followed us, he would have called out to us. Bobby definitely didn't go up the mountain." As soon as I finished speaking, great-grandma changed her expression. She said darkly, "If Bobby didn't go up the mountain, then where did he go? I think Bobby was lost because of you. You didn't want Bobby to eat chicken. So you abandoned Bobby, didn't you?" Lily said, "No, you didn't see Bobby." Great-grandma scowled. She said, "That Bobby, huh? You two lost Bobby. Wait till the adults come back and see what I do to you. Hurry up and go find Bobby." Great-grandma went into the storeroom after saying that. The hen she had killed still hadn't been plucked. It lay on the ground bleeding. Lily cried, "Felix, what are we going to do? Bobby is lost." I said, "Bobby wasn't lost by the 2 of us. Bobby is clever. If he had followed us, he'd surely have called out to us." No sooner had I finished speaking than I heard a faint crying from the west room. That crying wasn't just I who heard it. Lily heard it too. Lily said, "It's Bobby." Lily and I hurried into the west room and called, "Bobby." I heard a faint crying again. The sound seemed to be coming from the wardrobe, which was very large. It was Tannis Dowry. I went up to the wardrobe, pressed my ear against it, and heard a faint crying from inside. It was Bobby. I said, "Bobby is in the wardrobe." I and Lily struggled hard to pry the cabinet open just a crack. The moment the cabinet opened, I smelled a strong scent of blood. I moved the cabinet aside a little more and said toward the inside of the cabinet, "Bobby." Bobby's crying grew louder. Lily and I used all our strength to open the cabinet, and the scene inside frightened both me and Lily. The 2 of us slumped on the bed, unable even to cry out, limbs limp, covered in cold sweat. Bobby was lying in the cabinet. His ears were gone, his 10 fingers were gone, and I could still see Clara's clothes in the cabinet. Clara's clothes were covered in blood. Lily's hand was trembling too. She whispered, "It's an evil ghost." I took a deep breath and yanked Bobby out of the cupboard. Bobby was covered in blood and very weak, with bite marks all over him. Horrific to see. I said, "Bobby, what happened?" No sooner had I finished speaking than Bobby widened his eyes. I followed Bobby's line of sight and saw great-grandmother standing in the doorway. I didn't know when she had appeared, and I wondered whether she had heard what we had said. Great-grandma's face was expressionless. She said, "Bobby, what's wrong? Why are you covered in blood?" When great-grandma said that, I saw her teeth had lengthened considerably again, sharp and thin. No sooner had great-grandma finished speaking than Lily jumped out the window. As she ran, she shouted, "A demon! A man-eating demon! Someone help!" Great-grandma seemed not to hear Lily. Unhurried, she walked up to me and said with a smile, "Felix, be obedient and put Bobby in the cupboard." Great-grandma gave off a foul smell like a pig that died of plague. It was nauseating. Bobby had fainted. I held Bobby tightly and wouldn't let go. Seeing that I wouldn't let go, great-grandma grew anxious. She widened her eyes into a feral expression, grabbed Bobby's arm with one hand, snatched Bobby from my embrace, and with the other hand clamped my neck and lifted me up. Just as I felt certain I was about to die, I heard grandfather's voice from the yard. "Ma, we're back." Great-grandmother heard Grandpa's voice. She let out a cackling laugh. Grandpa walked to the window, looked into the room, and froze. Great-grandmother's hair was completely white, her eyes bloodshot. She looked exactly like a female ghost. Just as great-grandmother was about to squeeze the life out of me, Grandpa rushed into the room. He wrapped his arms tightly around Grandma, then shouted at me, "Felix, run! Go find your knife! Go find Master Chun!" Great-grandma suddenly let go of my hand. Seeing my chance, I jumped out the window. I ran shouting, "Help! Help! Great-grandma has turned into a demon." I ran to the village entrance and then saw Grandmother. Grandmother said, "Felix, what's wrong?" I cried, "Great-grandma has turned into an evil ghost. Grandfather told you to find Master Chun." Grandmother instantly widened her eyes. She picked me up and ran toward the west end of the village. I don't know how long she ran before we reached Master Chen's house. Master Chun was sitting on a stool in the sun. Grandmother said anxiously, "Master Chun, something terrible has happened. My old lady has turned into an evil ghost." Master Chun frowned and said, "How many people are there in your courtyard?" Grandma looked at me. I said, "In the yard there are only Grandpa and Great-grandma." Hearing me say that, Master Chin's brow relaxed. He said, "Fortunately, it's only 2 people. If there were more, it would be difficult. That evil ghost can possess people. Hurry and leave." We hurried back to my house. As soon as we entered the yard, Grandma was dumbfounded. Several people were standing in our yard. Thomas, George, and Thomas's son William, and daughter-in-law Grace were all there. Grandma frowned, asking softly, "Master Chun, what should we do?" Master Chun squinted, saying nothing. Great-grandma was tied up and pinned to the ground. Her mouth was bleeding. George said, "Master Chun, think of something quickly. What are we going to do? My mother has become an evil ghost." Master Chun said, "First lock the old woman in the granary. You few go to the back mountain and cut some peach branches and bring them back." George asked, "What do we need peach branches for?" Master Chun said, "To drive away ghosts. Hurry and go." Grandfather said, "Master Chun, must I still go? My leg was bitten by my mother. It hurts badly." Grandfather's calf was bleeding, looking very disheveled. Master Chun said, "Don't go yet. Stay. I have more to ask you." Grandfather nodded. "All right." George rolled his eyes twice and went with the others up the mountain to get peach branches. After they left, only a few of us remained in the yard. Master Chun asked, "After your mother turned into an evil ghost, did she only bite your leg?" Grandfather knit his brows. He said, "She also bit my arm, but I dodged it." Master Chun asked again, "Why did so many people suddenly come to the house? Who called them?" Grandfather said, "It was Lily who called. She called my brothers over." Master Chun asked, "Which one is Lily?" Grandfather said, "Lily didn't come. Lily is William's girl, only 7 years old." Master Chun frowned and said nothing. Grandmother asked, "Master Chun, what's wrong?" Master Chun looked at Grandfather and said, "Get your mother out of the granary." Grandfather nodded. He went into the granary. and while grandfather was inside, Master Chun took 2 luck pouches from his pocket. He pressed the pouches into grandmother's hands and whispered, "Put the pouches on. That way an evil spirit can't possess you. Remember, you can't trust anyone in this yard. They might be evil spirits. I need to draw the spirit out." Grandmother frowned. She whispered, "How will you draw it out?" Master Chin said in a low voice, "The evil ghost eats people. It can't resist and lures people. I don't think your mother is the evil ghost, so tonight we'll use your mother as bait." Grandpa pulled great-grandmother out of the granary. Great-grandmother collapsed to the ground, her expression dazed, as if greatly shocked. Master Chin narrowed his eyes, and suddenly a child's cry came from the west room. Bobby was still alive. Grandmother hurriedly carried Bobby out of the west room. Bobby cuddled in grandmother's arms, his eyes staring fixedly at Master Chun. Grandma leaned over to Master Chin's side and whispered, "Master Chun, do you still have any lucky pouches?" Master Chin shook his head and said, "Lucky pouches are rare treasures. There are no extras." Grandma furrowed her brow and said, "Poor Bobby." Grandma had barely finished speaking when George and the others returned, carrying many peach blossom branches. Master Chin wove a very large bamboo basket from peach tree branches, then put tiny into the basket. Master Chin said, "Hang the evil ghost on the locust tree for 3 days and 3 nights, and the evil ghost will surely die." Master Chin had barely finished speaking when several people together hoisted Tane up into a tree 5 or 6 meters high. Tane sat in the bamboo basket, wailing and crying. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. George asked, "Master Chun, will this method work?" Master Chin said, "Don't worry. The evil ghost will surely be dead in 3 days." Master Chun, after saying this, turned to grandmother and said, "Boil a few eggs and have everyone peel them." Grandmother nodded, then went to the storeroom to cook. When evening came, grandmother set the eggs on the table. Everyone in the room froze when they saw the eggs, but no one spoke. The evil ghost couldn't see the eggs. Only people could. Grandma gave everyone an egg and smiled, saying, "Eat it while it's hot." Grandma kept her eyes fixed on the few people at the table as she said this. Everyone picked up their eggs and peeled them, except for Bobby, who didn't take an egg. His fingers were already gone. Grandma frowned. She put the peeled egg into Bobby's bowl. "Bobby, eat it while it's hot." Bobby was stunned for a few seconds. He said, "Eat what?" Bobby's words had barely fallen when everyone at the table looked at one another. Grandma said, "Eat what's in your bowl." Bobby looked at Grandma with a complicated expression. He smiled and said, "I don't want to eat the egg." Bobby said this while deliberately glancing down at the bowl in front of him, though his bowl was clearly empty. Just a moment ago, Grandma had already taken the egg from his bowl. Grandma looked up at Master Chun for a moment. Master Chin just told Grandma not to make a sound. Grandma forced a laugh twice and said, "If you don't want to eat it, then don't." Bobby looked coldly at the people around the table and said in a cold voice, "What are you all staring at me for? You don't actually think I'm a demon, do you?" Grandpa said, "No, the demon has already been caught." Bobby snorted coldly. His eyes moved slowly, emitting an eerie air. Bobby said, "I'm going to sleep in the west room." Bobby said that, then got out off. He dashed into the west room and even closed its door. Master Chin narrowed his eyes and said, "The evil ghost is inside Bobby's body. Tonight we'll catch the ghost." The people at the table all widened their eyes. George asked, "If the evil ghost is in Bobby's body, then quickly put my mother down. The wind is strong in the tree." Master Chin said, "You can't put her down yet. Wait until midnight. The evil ghost definitely won't be able to resist eating people and will surely appear under the big tree. It will leap upward with its head thrown back. At that time, you all go around behind the ghost, bind it with ropes, and I'll use talisman paper to kill the ghost." Everyone at the table nodded in agreement. Master Chin said, "Everyone disperse. Don't let the evil spirit become suspicious." The people at the table broke up, and each returned to their own house. Master Chin said, "I'll go back first to fetch the talisman paper. I'll definitely be back before midnight." Master Chun said that and left, leaving only the 3 of us in the room. Grandfather sat on the bed sighing. He said, "What kind of thing is this?" Grandmother said, "There's nothing to be done. It just happened." Grandmother had just finished speaking when Grandfather said, "If the evil spirit is Bobby, then we should bring Mother down. The wind in the tree is so strong. Won't it make her sick?" Grandmother frowned. She said, "Old man, listen, Master Chun. Let your wife endure for now and trick the evil ghost." Grandfather said, "I'll bring a quilt to your mother." Grandfather said that, picked up the quilt, and was about to go out. Grandmother hurriedly stopped Grandfather, saying, "Don't go out." Grandmother had barely finished speaking when I saw George take the quilt into the yard. He threw the quilt to Great-Grandmother. Grandma said, "George is going, you shouldn't go." Grandpa frowned, and only then didn't go out. I leaned on the windowsill and looked out. I thought I saw a dark figure following George, and that shadow even followed George into the house he lives in. I rubbed my eyes and looked again. George and the dark figure had both disappeared. At midnight, Master Chin still hadn't returned. Grandmother knitted her brows. She said, "Master Chin, why hasn't he come back yet? Could he have run into some danger?" Grandma had barely finished speaking when I heard George scream. He shouted, "Help! A demon is going to eat someone." I leaned on the window and looked out and saw George rushing out of the house. His face was still smeared with blood. George pounded on our door. "Open up." Grandma and Grandpa exchanged a look, communicating with their eyes. Grandma asked, "George, what does that evil ghost look like?" George said, "It's Bobby. Bobby is the evil ghost. He ate everyone in the house." Grandfather furrowed his brow and said, "I saw that evil ghost with my own eyes. It was clearly just a shadow. Whomever it possesses becomes the evil ghost. George is lying." Grandfather said this, then shouted toward the door, "George, run now. The door in the house won't open." Grandma whispered, "George is an evil ghost." Grandpa nodded. He said, "George wants to get in and eat us all." Grandpa had barely finished speaking when George's pounding came from outside the door. The pounding on the door was very loud. George's voice grew louder. He shouted, "Open the door! Open the door! If you don't open it, I'll eat you all." Our wooden door was battered until the frame rattled. Grandmother said anxiously, "Old man, what should we do? He's about to get in." Grandfather furrowed his brow. He said, "Quickly climb onto the beam and get out through the roof. Evil ghosts can't come up." The few of us stood on stools and, with great effort, managed to climb onto the beam. Grandfather then poked a hole in the roof, and we climbed out through the hole one by one. Grandfather was the last to climb up. Grandfather had just climbed up when our wooden door was kicked open. George strode in fiercely. Seeing no one inside and noticing the hole in the roof, he hurried into the yard and shouted at us, "You get down. If you don't come down, I'll climb up and eat you all." Grandfather furrowed his brow and said, "If you've got the guts, climb up. There's no ladder. Let's see how you get up." Grandfather had barely finished speaking. Grandmother glared at Grandfather and said, "You're egging him on." Grandfather signaled Grandma Thurdo, "Be quiet." George gave a strange smile, ran to the barn, and brought out a ladder. George propped the ladder against the house. He swallowed. Grandpa said, "Don't come any closer." George used hands and feet to climb toward the roof. Almost reaching the top, Grandpa pushed the ladder away. George fell hard to the ground. George seemed not to feel the pain. He set the ladder against the house again and kept climbing, and as he neared the roof, Grandpa pushed the ladder away again, repeating this several times. George lay on the ground motionless. Grandma said, "Old man, did the evil spirit die from the fall?" Grandfather furrowed his brow and said, "Let's look again at dawn." Early the next morning, a few of us came down from the house, and Eventai Nai was brought down from the tree. George was already dead, fallen to his death. In the west room, Bobby was dead too. Only a pool of blood remained. In Thomas's family, only bloody clothes were left. They had all been eaten by the evil ghost. Grandfather said, "Let's go. We must leave quickly." Grandfather had barely finished speaking when I saw our yard gate open. Master Chun entered the yard. Grandmother said, "Master Chun, why are you only just coming?" Master Chun squinted his eyes and said, "I was trapped by an evil ghost last night. truly unable to free myself. That evil ghost, grandmother said. The evil ghost is already dead. Master Chun laughed out loud. He said, good that it's dead. Grandmother said, Master Chun, our family is moving away. The things you gave me yesterday, I'm returning them to you. Master Chun was stunned for a few seconds. He said, the things I gave you? What things? Grandma said, lucky pouch. Master Chun laughed, a lousy lucky pouch. You can keep it. Master Chun had just finished speaking. Grandma changed her expression. Master Chun kept a smile on his face, staring intently at the few of us. The look in his eyes grew increasingly strange. Grandma muttered softly, can't get away. The sound of Master Chun laughing